We welcome our dear viewers. You can watch VNTV, Ivana Tura Television and your favorite social talk series. With great respect and love, I welcome Laszlo Zoltan Tot to the studio.
Hello.
The dear viewers have already met Zoli in the context of autism and breakdancing, but now perhaps the most important thing that could have happened to you in your life, excuse me for adding such a circumlocution, is the subconscious, which you have become a kind of expert on the subconscious. And as I know you, you have always been able to experience great successes, great heights, and great depths. But I would be particularly interested in why the subconscious and getting to know it, uncovering its mysteries, became so important to you that you will tell how far you ventured in the matter.
In practice, I never wanted to deal with the subconscious autistic people and such, so if you asked me this in 2013, I would say, oh, don't be silly. So where was my interest in all this? Well, I went, I lived, I did my things, I braked, organized and marketed companies, so it was such a good life for me. Where did I want to do singing? Of course, I would like to add that already when I was a child, when there was a conflict between my mother and father. And I noticed things about my mother that were not rational for me. I didn't understand why he was doing it. Already then, something stuck here. Why this? Why is this happening? And there I think this desire to decipher started, but in a way that I didn't know it was in there. He just started a misunderstanding, and then I lined up the situations. And so I really put a lot of pressure on my life. That's how I tried to maximize everything that was possible. I just fell over at that time, especially the relationship, but then I realized that it took everything. Well, and then at the many times I decided to end my life. And for what? Because I came to the conclusion that the same thing always happens, but always with a different woman. Always the same, always with a different woman. For a long time I thought that the problem was always the woman. Then I realized it wasn't. But after the same situation occurs, there is a problem here. But after I didn't see what the problem was, only that it was doing this to me, that's all I saw. My life lost its meaning. And then I said, well, why am I doing this? If something blocks me, then my brain is faulty. Then let's go to the Rakosaba railway station. Well, I went there, stood on the platform and waited for the train, but it didn't come. So the dear seer started to think in here, and the thoughts that came to me were that I first realized that if I submit myself, it is good for me. It's over there. I don't have to pay a check, I don't have to fight, I don't have to think about what's going to happen now, etc. It is not good for the one with whom I promised something, it is not good for him. Well, this immediately started to turn me around, and then a thought immediately popped into my mind that if I jumped off, I would never understand why I ended up there, on the platform. And then this turns around in such a way that you also gave me the power to decipher this for me. And then I had a couple of relationships that ended before that, right? That was my last day. And I still kept in touch with me, and I simply felt that if he called, something would turn on so instinctively, and I couldn't say no like that, say, I can't do anything, as if he were in charge. But I got out of everything else, but not that. And I say, well, that can't be true, and then I realized that this has to be stopped, but it's urgent, I have to be mentally stable. And that's where it started, that I needed some method that would make me stable. And this thought and the curiosity of what could be the bottom of this. Anyway, after I wanted to reveal myself, I was like, if it doesn't matter anyway, then let's go down to the bottom. Well, it doesn't matter now, then we already know what his wife is. And then these two things that I wanted to become stable in order to progress in life, to decipher it, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. These two gave birth to a mental training, the basis of which is the Shaolins anyway. The principle is that they train themselves in advance, make themselves stable in situations in advance, so that when the situation arises, they don't switch on the wrong way. But they should see the situation objectively. What is its extent, how dangerous it is, and what needs to be done about it. This was the sub-schema.
So if they are afraid of something, they have learned to deal with this situation in advance, even before it was real.
Exactly. So it's like a life simulator. Practically, in the end, they make a life simulator. They forget themselves about every situation in advance, and we thought, this has nothing to do with us, but they will always see what is there. So they are really present. They are trained for him. The visceral fears are trained. By the way, a lot of sports people, for example, bathe in ice water straight ahead. So this is what sports people do in part, and which is a good technique. Well, that's what I figured out, and a friend of mine and I developed this technique, which could be used to get to the very bottom. Well, at the bottom there are memories inherited from the subconscious, very brutal, so I came down to that and protected them all, so I have a patent for subconscious logic. Now that's a Mozartan. This is the world's first Mozarteum on the logic of the subconscious, which is put together item by item with diagrams to show what it means. And we have such a discovery that trauma is the center, it is the center of everything, and this is practically the greatest pain of the entire evolution and the other events that are arranged around it, which are already smaller. But the center of this is the greatest pain, by the way. This was the Middle Ages, because it was long-lasting, the worst. Many mental illnesses were born from it. Well, the point is that this was in me too, and this trauma center practically pushed me in the direction of the hero. And this is what I noticed about myself. Why is it that I always want to help everyone? I always want to make everyone happy, where I'm not sure I should be asked to spy on me, even though I was fine with that. So it's interesting that the hero type, like me, caused me the happiness of being able to lift others up. However, it is very interesting that the other side, because this trauma center has two projections. The hero and the victim, right? And these are engagements, so no one is a hero or a victim, but these are the projections and reaction systems of such inherited memories. I would rather say it that way. And right, if I want to help, let's say, a victim type, he takes it as perfect violence. And here was mine, so it needs my power first, although it's perfect that I don't have the real power either. Because the hero type thinks more of himself than what he actually can do. However, if I want to help, then first of all, it is sympathetic to the victim type, but with the same strength that he desires, which he feels he does not have. Anyway, he has it. Everyone has everything. He just feels that he does not have it. He longs for it. That's also terrifying to him. Here come the games. And that's what I came for. Yes. And the point is that the objective is between the two, and we have to get there now. So in the middle. After all, these are just engagements. But if we get involved, what the Shaolins train themselves to do, then we don't see it as reality, because it triggers something with us, doesn't it? So, for you to induce a feeling in me now, let's say I've never known you, and I'm sitting here, and you induce a feeling, and whether I like it or not, it's false in the first place, because you're eliciting it. So it's not you, it's created in my head, so that's who I really am. So here the fault is to be found in me, in Hungarian. I would like to tell everyone that if you shake your head, the world will change. And this is exactly what I realized, that people are actually afraid of society. Everyone wants to change. We are so afraid of society, what they will think, what they will say, how they will outwit us, etc. We do it instinctively. You may consciously ask anyone, well, I'm not afraid of him. We are so afraid of it that we will not change until they change. However, it is very interesting that they are us. So society is us. What a trap.
Yes, probably when you had a memory of your life in the Middle Ages, who knows, because it was quite a long period, maybe it was the fact that you always survived it that caused you to be heroic. And then in your current life you always have a kind of medieval level. You create stress and aggression in your life so that you can play out your heroism, which you receive from creation, creative power, fighting power, and live again and again and again. This is very interesting anyway. We've been dealing with consciousness a lot lately, so consciousness is undergoing a kind of evolution. And the interesting thing about consciousness and about life force is that no one can decipher these two things. So scientists, what exactly is life force and what is consciousness? It cannot be determinate. However, it seems that this is the basis of everything and this is the source of everything. So now the consciousness may have reached such a level of development that we no longer continue with that unconscious, traumatized life, but with a kind of higher intelligence which can otherwise come in through presence, through observation. You understand and shed light on it. And if you'll allow me, let's talk about an example. It's good that there is one that I think can be very close to you, because as I know your life, you have achieved a lot of success. If it was a success, even from a success, it is very outstanding and very outstanding. And no matter how many times you lost it or failed after it, some new topic came up again, which you did again to the maximum. Whether it was taking breakdancing to the Olympic level or building a network, you always achieved great results. But what happened every time you reached it? I was attacked. For him? A lot of people have an energetic feeling right now that I am under attack, and in being attacked it doesn't matter how we react, that if we were to go into this a little bit, it might be that a lot of people will be familiar with it, or a lot of people will find a connection about themselves for this. How many times have you felt attacked? 024.
The truth is that I was always attacked. People were like that with me. This is a very good example, especially for the Hungarians, that the Hungarians are like that, especially the Hungarians, but pretty much the whole world, as if there was a palm tree full of coconuts. And so I think that they should go up. None of them can really climb up, or they don't dare, and then there is a person who says that I'll just go up, I'll throw it down. That's fine with me. Then they start celebrating, hyping, wow, he is the helper. They give me everything. Just go up, climb, climb, climb. Everyone is very happy. At the bottom they are happy to see if the coconut will come down. He is happy to help the others, and he will have a coconut and he will have nothing. But when it almost reaches the coconut, they panic below. One starts panicking and starts whispering. So listen, what if you don't drop a brush? It's fine if you eat them all, but there's only so much. What's up? It's united for us, it's not much. And once they panic, tense up, and then shake the person off before the coconut reaches them. So this is how Hungarians work. They are being sabotaged. It's self-sabotage.
Even before So they don't really give you a chance to succeed.
But neither do you. So that's really what it is, that it's self-sabotage. So they are afraid of losing, which is the only sure thing that will happen. So their analysis is turned off because they panic. One panics, you nudge the rest. They all panic. That's a crowd. That's why people are afraid of crowds. And the power of the crowd can shake that person down. There is this mechanism.
That's why they don't let someone get out of the system, let's say, or let someone get better.
Of course.
Like anyone else.
They are afraid of being left behind.
How does the belief system that after every good comes bad come here?
Yes, by the way, this is exactly the feeling of being attacked, because this is a good topic, the feeling of being attacked, because I realized that the trauma center is the combination of many stories, and it goes on, doesn't it? So, until the Middle Ages, right? It's not like the Middle Ages were created, but it has antecedents, Rome, Taigetos, ancient man, etc. So mistakes piled up on mistakes, and it got bigger and bigger. Revenge is what makes this compulsion to give back. It causes the conflict to get bigger and bigger, and the pain gets bigger and bigger. In fact, because it is intentional. But anyway, there is no such intentionality, because it is basically a relationship. It is self-protective. We do something that we are not sure we want anyway. The subconscious mind just makes us do it. And then we practically attack each other. And when we attack it, think about it now, we'll get the tag together a bit. A good Spartan. They were in wars, and practically the main goal was to make the team as sharp as possible, because then their state would not be taken there. And a non-normal person in his council of elders figured out that it can be accelerated so that it doesn't spread out at the age of 7, that some child can't handle that much. But let's look at it at the beginning, and if it's not like that, then let him go. Oh well, but that's okay, because strategically this can be a good technique for the number of pieces for strength, because then you don't have to worry about them afterwards. It doesn't slow down the team. Okay, but that's the biggest thing in the world when you throw out a child. In my opinion, the biggest trauma in the whole evolution is that the discarded child is still present in it, which is roughly what autism is. This is how autistic children feel like the outcast. And that cannot be processed, but also for Rome, if you look at its symbol, 2 children raised by wolves, right? So they are castaway children, Romulus and Remus. How did Rome work in the first place? Like a group where there is a compulsion to conform, that they will be the most professional, the biggest, but they are also afraid of that, and that they hate everyone anyway because they oppressed everyone. And it collapsed, didn't it? The Middle Ages became. So its revenge is the Middle Ages. And then Romanas struck out because they wanted to be the strongest, the biggest in self-defense, so they wouldn't be hurt. So they wanted to rise above everyone. And if they do this, others will be at the bottom, right? So that's where the world really split, but very much. And there is this duality in us. And the feeling of being attacked comes here in such a way that whoever carries such a memory is thrown away. Well, that's interesting. So when did that kid get kicked out? Right, to the judgment of an outsider. Now, until the judgment of the external person came, how did that child feel? Well, very well, because this factor did not exist before, so the father believed in him, the mother took care of him, he was given a vision of the future by the parents, so he had faith to get somewhere, and suddenly such a break comes. What develops in the child? If everything is good, then destruction will follow. Well, this has happened in several cases, in several life cycles, in evolution, in several eras, that when everything was good, then tragedy comes. Now, if someone has such a memory in their DNA, can it function today in such a way as to protect us, so that when everything starts to be good, we will get out, or will we be overwhelmed?
Because we cannot reach this moment, and it's better if you can't. I'm still alive.
Sure.
If I don't make it. So I am further into life, into a worse life, than when I reach the good, when I reach, let's say, the awakening of consciousness.
Exactly.
My state of inner peace, when I reach it again, is the most dangerous for me.
Because the trouble comes later.
Yes, trouble or death, ostracism, etc. Because right now, if we look at the awakening process, this is what is happening right now, that people have never been very, very close, perhaps as close to awakening as they are now, in such a mass. And when it happens, or maybe it will happen, then it immediately goes into denial. I would like to ask you an intimate question. How do you react when you are attacked?
Yes, I am very relaxed now because my attackers trained me, so I thank them.
But I guess it wasn't like that a long time ago?
No, I became a neurotic a long time ago. The hero will be the neurotic.
And when the hero is nervous, he can act without thinking, right? Either you feel it gave you passivity or rather your fortress has been maxed out.
I became dominant there, so I put everyone down. So if someone attacked me, I put it down.
So you were able to defend yourself very well, actually.
I wasn't afraid that I would be in trouble now. Anyway, the perfect hero is always afraid of not being able to protect his loved ones. That they will take me there and he will be left alone. Because this is his memory. So the hero will not become a hero by himself, only a memory that he could not save someone. And there is an inherited guilt that we are compensating for today. And in any case, we feel good when it dominates, when we finally lift someone up, and it's fine, and everything is fine.
So then during evolution it is advisable to lose at least one person, so that afterwards it turns into a kind of helper in other lives and in our life situation, or you are the one who actually healed, and in the process you developed a method. Let's see that when you observe yourself, let's look at this example. That is why many of us in today's world feel that it is unfounded or impossible to know. It is not necessarily possible to know clearly whether we are under attack, that they are now attacking our lives, our freedom. They are breaking our health. They are trying to limit the supplies we need for our daily lives. Apparently this is what happens, but what happens when I recognize this? I feel that I am being attacked, or I go into a state of shock, or I immediately want to take active action. I want to fight it. I want to be a hero. I want to save everyone. When the subconscious is here, you discover these. What can we do specifically? Can this be changed somehow?
Yes. The first thing is to analyze today's world, because that's a point of view. Because if we are in a situation and our consciousness is narrowed without it, then we can hardly see out of it and we just fight. Either they can oppress us, or we want to oppress someone so that they don't hurt us anymore, or we want to rank above everyone else. So today's politics is organized above everyone because they are actually afraid.
Well, who is really afraid now?
Yes, they are afraid because they are the directors above everyone else, so they cannot attack us, we think. So coming back to the fact that, first of all, I always look at the fact that for 20,000 forints today, I can fly almost anywhere in Europe, or take a train or whatever in a matter of seconds. So I buy a ticket on time in Ireland, it's a few thousand forints, and I'm spoiled. So, if the situation is really bad, I'll take a flight, then continue there, and the situation is completely different there. So they were left out there even during the World War, so that today there is no need to take this matter so drastically, because we are quite mobile. So let's take this as a basis, that today's technology means that everyone's car can go at least 140. So we get to A, B pretty quickly. So we can step down if there really is a problem. So let's take it easy. 2. Internet. So today, communication is so fast. There are so many platforms. You can ask for help, communicate, etc. so quickly. We will also know the news sooner, so if there really was something seriously wrong here, we would find out in time anyway. We must pay attention to the fact that we have, in fact, the right, because I also just won a lawsuit, so that it is indeed possible to enforce the will today. It is possible to win a lawsuit. It is possible to protect the reality, that is the good intention, but this must be seen on the one hand that it is really possible. And if we look at the fact that there is law, there is technology, there is a World Wide Web, I can move quickly. With a lot of such technical devices, I made this continent hill house as a patent, right? And right now I am not so affected by this bombing either, so if maybe here something will come through because it will endure. It can handle it, there are no overheads, so it doesn't affect you either. If I'm environmentally conscious, my surface is green, right? What can I say? So it's today, if we calm down a bit, everyone will come up with a lot of ideas. Here is Einstein. I chose this particular picture, so everyone thinks what a genius Einstein is. No, he would be the average one can know. So I'm not a genius either, but I've been trained, I've been under so much pressure that I've realized things from pressure, so that's the good news, that if someone feels pressured now, they can become Einstein.
It's very wonderful that when you wanted to end your life, and luckily the train didn't come, I think that when a person has no future, what else is left for him but the present? So you were there in that present situation, you still had a few minutes to consider that, well, you still had something so divine that you saw yourself standing here, you saw that, well, this guy here was quite unfortunate, he couldn't solve the relationships, this is the end, run away from him, the problem is with me. But when you said that the problem is with me, and if I do this thing, what am I doing to others? In fact, this was what was needed for your consciousness to be opened in such a way that you did not want to solve the situation from your old patterns, from your subconscious memory. But you were given a new light that, whoops, I put things in a different light, a kind of intelligence, which immediately said that, children, we are not going to joke about this here, because there will be a Moser doctrine, which if I solve and get myself out of this low point, then the path I take to get out is not just a path for me. But it is sure to give others a chance. And this is its greatness. So this is when we talk about the fact that from this narrowed, intimidated consciousness, from the subconscious, which constantly feels attacked, because a person can be afraid quite normally, even if he himself is not afraid, then the next comes that I was afraid of my loved ones then. No one can solve this, so to speak. So no one usually achieves this because I don't worry about them either. Or when through consciousness, through an opened consciousness, through a higher consciousness, one understands that not only our relationships are which define us, but from now on there is a much more essential essence through which we are one. So it is not necessarily only our relationships that determine whether we are afraid or not. Then solutions can come into our lives that we could not think of before. And living through that, surely it couldn't have been easy. I would like to ask you how your relationship with the ladies is now. What did you have to change? Or in fact, you only had to get to know yourself in order to be good with yourself on the one hand, and to be self-identified, and then the right couple for you can arrive.
I am in this situation now because I made a lot of vows and promises. On the one hand, my child would have been autistic 100%, because I was such a hero that I always pulled in the other side, so the scissors were too big. This is the cause autism. By the way, we are now conducting a completely official research in this Erdmel game, so not many people will have an impact factor research for this. And I'm sure that the child would have been autistic, and that would have caused all kinds of conflict.
And if your subconscious is living the tegetos age, then you can't risk having an autistic child, because he can immediately go to the tegetos.
That's right.
So actually...
So I knew something was wrong with me.
Yes, it's very interesting anyway when it's like this.
I felt that something was wrong with me. And at first I always thought that it was someone else's problem. So that's also interesting. That's how we humans are. At least our consciousness develops in such a way that it consists of two parts, right? So there is nothing else under the conscious mind, just instinctive self-defense. And that is the limbic system. He does these stupid things that we can't grasp. He pushes forward such visceral reflexes. Our development is as follows. First, we either blame others or we blame ourselves. And then it turns into the exact opposite. So the person who blamed himself starts blaming others, and vice versa. And this goes on until suddenly everything is averaged out, and not from above. We start looking at all the crashes and realize that they are not really us. So the situation is that these are inherited tragedies, which by the way started when, say, an ancient man started to have an analytical mind and started making generalized decisions. And that's where it all started. Because why did the women need to be locked up in the cave if only one was injured and could not, say, breastfeed? So why did they all have to be closed? Well, because the man wanted to protect everyone, especially because of the child. She wanted the child. And this protection of the child is still my gut instinct today. Everything revolves around it. If the relationship does not work, it is not because we are afraid of the child, but we are not afraid of the child, but that there will be some kind of tragedy with the child, with which we will be there, or we will do something like that. Very rough. Everything revolves around the child, and this is what causes these fears now. And don't you think that if someone builds a good family, then the envious will come? Because we turn on the other person's hurt with our example, don't we? So I found out about envy. Because I was only attacked by envious people, I switched on the fact that they could do this too, but they don't know how. So that they could do it.
Yes, that's a lot of people.
They just feel that they don't know, and then I practically turn on this for them. If someone can't do something, it's because they have an inherited memory, which is good but bad, right? What I said is preventive self-sabotage, that's what we called it and protected it. This means that he does not dare to do it again, because his ancestors failed this good somewhere. You don't have to go far, right? As recently as 50, 60 years ago, the plots were taken one by one. I have an acquaintance who said that they even came to his father and held a gun to his head and took everything, horses, land. Well, that's a huge loss. After that, the human nervous system, the instinctive part, gets stuck here with a condition that if I reach the state that I have everything, then they will take it, so it's not worth reaching. And on top of that, when he was taken away, it hurt, so as a partner in pain next to him, because the pain will protect him. So the subconscious, the instinctive self-defense, works in such a way that it forces this pain on us, so that if we start to build a similar situation so that we feel like what is going to happen, so that we stop, so it actually wants to stop. Now, if I do something that easily, which let's say someone else wants to do, he feels that he would find out and push this trauma into him, which may be one of the ancestors' great-grandfathers, he gets it, or even lower. Well, it brings it up, doesn't it, the bad feeling that this success was taken from him, and he starts revenge. And he beats me. And he beats me instinctively. So this is very rough, and I can see that someone who feels a little bit of envy should start practicing asking the person they envy how they did it. Oh, and in the meantime, explore this trauma with someone. let's say we can request that the Spotmauser is good for this. So that's where this thing started for me, that I was always attacked and I never understood it. Now I understand why. That's why I associate pain with success. And today, Hungary would be capable of everything. In fact, the whole world. We have such a technical responsibility that I honestly think that if I put it together a little bit, we could easily live on any planet because we have such technical sophistication. What if?
Well, then there is a very important part of this feeling of being attacked. Isn't there such an automatic and continuous defense in everyone here? It generates strength in someone, and let's say he prefers to attack before he is attacked. Let's look at the situation that the reason for the outbreak of a war could be that we live in such a tension that it is good. So if the tension in the world is already at such a peak, then let's launch an attack. And then at least within the framework of such a war situation, everyone releases these tensions inside, of course with all their harm. So how is it useful? You would like to knock on it, you would prefer to speak to it, you would prefer to make order in this world. But there is no possibility of that. But the tension is enormous, especially if someone feels attacked for a long time. It does not necessarily lead to an increase in energy. Not only that, his energy decreases, but mental distortions can already occur.
You can see very well. Actually, war does not bring any advantage. But unfortunately, you have to know that the nervous system worked in such a way that if we could have done it better, we could have done it better, but we couldn't. So it's a retroactive shame on this. Now we can do better. Because we have a lot of information, we're still talking about things that you, I, and more of you are doing. I also have this book here, the book Sandeka Yellow. On the back of this, for example, is the fact that those who know the laws of life always know the next step. Well, the interesting thing about this book is that it came out of my own tragedy. So I can suggest to people that I didn't want to hurt others from my tragedy. I didn't want to hurt myself. I just wanted to explain it. So if someone feels the need for war, then I will say that autism is a consequence of war. So if we want more autistics, we want another crash, because the increase in autistics will eventually lead to an economic crash. If we want, let's go to war again. Fate, karma, will return this, because there is always cause and effect. If we go to war, there will be more and more children who don't want to go to war, and this is autistic. Autistic people don't go to war. He doesn't stand by the fighter either, and they don't want him attacked either. That's why they stop in such a world of madness, because they don't feel that it hurts and they don't stop anywhere. Now, if we don't want that, then I'll take care of what's in here. And then there is consciousness. So you said right, that they can't articulate what consciousness is. Well, I'll try to articulate it. I'm not saying that I can articulate it, but that there are 1 or 2 developments that I have discovered. Didn't I put this in the way that there is this part, and there is this part that we can't see, but it works? So we call it subconscious, or unconscious, because we don't see it, yet there are consequences, which we already see, that something happened, but we don't know how. Well, it's not that complicated. Inherited memories run here, as well as memories from this lifetime. So if a dog bites you, it is also stored here. It has a video library called Thalamus. There are these film cassettes, which it calls up when there is a similar situation. Now, how long does the subconscious work? It's very simple. It works until you get all the answers in technology. It works until then. As soon as you get it, it turns off right there. So you can be quiet with that much. And the greatest technique must be obtained for the good. How to protect the good. Because if we can protect the good, it won't turn on anymore. Because then he is no longer afraid of the good. So if we want to stop here subconsciously, then we must be able to preserve and protect the good. Because then it won't. Our biggest fear is the good anyway. Not the bad, the good. Because it's much worse, isn't it, to be disappointed. If you think that now you have your life, everything is worked out, you have your community, your work, your passion.
Because of the loss of this good, there is no need for the good.
You don't need the good one. And it's very interesting. I trained a family and took out the 2 parents. The child was autistic. And you know what he said? This has since become a Mozartan diagram, that he recognized that they play with each other because it is useful. I say, why is it useful for you to play? He says that he realized that when the other person argues, they both feel that the other person argues because he wants to lift him up and help the situation. Doesn't that mean they mean well, so that they want good, so they go up?
But they are aware of it?
No, they couldn't there.
They didn't know there.
Discovered through training, yes. So there was an instinctive family life, like, this Italian thing.
Yes.
Well, they lived well then, but not completely, so that they could not achieve this, and they have everything, they cannot achieve this good state. And by the way, that's what keeps autism going. And guess what? He said that by criticizing each other, teasing each other, pulling, skinning, and quarreling, this means that both of them feel that they are quarreling with the other because they want good. Because in order to move forward, he wants to protect the other. But even though it's all a fight, they can never get it right. And then he realized that this means that they keep themselves by this technique in their mediocrity, so to speak, where there is neither good nor bad.
Safe, this is safe.
So in Hungarian, safety dominates everyone, and we dare not be too good or too bad with this. If we want to be too good, then we do it by putting the good on some wealth, because in order to have lots and lots of money, but this is not good. This fake is good, isn't it? Because it's also self-defense. If we have a lot of money, we can protect ourselves, we buy everyone, and then we can protect ourselves. But that's not good. This will not make anyone happy, and it will collapse anyway. We don't want the bad either. Right there is the other side, and the other type does what it does. It provides everything, but it doesn't move forward. Everything, but it doesn't move forward. Well, if two people of this type get together, then in such a big game, in the end, subconsciously, he feels that this is the calm for him. So the subconscious controls the whole thing, actually. And behind this are actually these torturous fears of death. This is the loss of everything, isn't it? Nihil itself, let's say someone who is depressed. This is the feeling of losing everything. This is depression. So practically, depression is not true today. Because if you haven't lost everything today, you just feel that way, then it's not you, it's your ancestor losing everything in the relationship now. And I realized, didn't I, that what I said earlier was a little overturned in this way, that this memory really works in such a way as to protect it, to push itself forward. Feel that way, because then you won't go any further. Go the other way. And that's why people move abroad, but they carry the trauma on. And they start ahead, just a little later.
You take yourself with you. I don't know that.
It's in there.
In the best case, or in a suitcase, in the best case, you lose it.
That's right.
Zoli, when they say that suffering is definitely necessary because suffering gives a kind of depth and wisdom, but my experience is that we always achieve breakthroughs and progress when we feel good for pleasure, since our natural state is the one, my joy, and when I feel good and happy I can experience the joy of being. Maybe suffering gives a depth, a drama to life, an understanding, a very deeper reality, deeper understanding, but it doesn't necessarily lead me to be happy about it and be happy about it, unless it's not so mozuhista, someone who especially likes to experience this, that if a lot of people are in a situation where they are not happy right now, or because they are afraid and this fear overshadows their everyday joy, or because they are sick, what can you suggest to our sufferings, our disadvantageous conditions such as autism, so that I don't use this to get away with things, to gain rights through my illness, to feel sorry for myself, but can this be turned into something that helps me improve, or even to turn it around? Because in the suffering, the person who suffers is a sick person. We don't see that, but in fact his daily life costs him much more energy than a healthy person. How can this be translated somehow? And if someone falls into such a situation, then what can he do before he gets very deep or goes into depression and really drains his energy?
These are very good questions. Actually, I can say that if anyone envies these people, or me, that I'm here now because there hasn't been a boat since then I'll say that we came from this suffering, and so did they, so everyone. So actually there is knowledge in what is now being experienced negatively. That's the knowledge. It simply needs to be translated. This is the same knowledge as what is here, only the sign is negative because it has pain. On the contrary, you have to look at whose pain it really is. Because it may not even be ours, but we have inherited this pain, and this pain practically does not transform into a driving force, but blocks it or drives it to excesses. Isn't it also a block if someone becomes an attacker, because this is the pain fire mode, but it's the same trauma, so there is a trauma, and then either the pain fire mode or the blow fire mode is switched on. The trauma is none other than that of an ancestor, not only my ancestor, because it is also a trauma if a dog bites you, so a video film of a memory accompanied by pain that repels us in a disadvantageous situation, this is the trauma itself, and it can be inherited or it can be lifelong. In practice, these video films try to govern us in such a way that we don't have any problems compared to the old memory, only that the world has changed. So I can say that everyone should start with how the world really is now. So look around the whole world, because I'll be honest, there are countries where you can relax. There are countries where you can be whoever you want. So you don't need to be so tight here. I'm also a patriot, so I love the country. I want it to change. But I look around, so I see the other countries. I travel, I collect data. They work differently in other places. A lot of them work very well. There are places where the situation is worse. But you can also see from this that the countries are not practically traumatized as they are. So it is a global trauma system. We are often connected, but it is possible to get out of it. And everyone has to start with themselves. Now, the difficult topic is who is at what level because of disconnection. So if someone is very switched off, this film, this memory is very active in him, he can turn it off so much that whatever we say, it will not change unless he pulls a big punch.
To see.
Yes. However, I can say that we should help these types of people because I talked to a homeless person. There was a homeless person who said that it was good for him. He wouldn't go back to his family. He has a family. He said to go. No, it doesn't work. He is offended. But he is not offended. But a movie is running in his head. And he is no longer so compulsive that he cannot step over those things because he is simply afraid of being degraded, etc. Because a demotion has so much meaning in his mind, even though it means so much. And they can be easily handled. It's just something ancient for him, isn't it? Where one of his ancestors was destroyed and humiliated a long time ago. And then he already thinks according to that, and that's why the street is better. Now, if someone is in such a state that they are very compulsive, I can tell you that it will be difficult for them to recognize it themselves, because they are involved in constant self-defense. Well, I was in this state too, so sorry for now. With my right mind, I consider myself quite stupid for going to the train station if I didn't know these details, which I know now. So who is not normal who goes to a train station? Who was the man there?
You were not.
No. It was a memory, and it really wasn't. I've seen so much of it, so you see, collisions shape us. So as I fell, I saw that the process in front of me was not good. The downfall was that they brought the whole process to your attention. That's why the story is watching, because people are in the process, they are carried by the drift, so to speak, carried by the subconscious because it is in control, because when you see me now, hear me, or smell sense, it practically goes into the limbic system first. This is a factory error, everyone. The second is the weigher. Well, this is where we failed.
Yes, because this is the first reaction, isn't it? This is what you have to stop now with a kind of more conscious presence, so that you can look at it for the first time, and probably a completely different reaction will arise from this, if only this is stopped by someone.
That's right, and here's the projecting. Because here, when there is a film, a memory, he immediately washes it away and doesn't let him consider it anymore. We could overwrite it with this, but what if you turn it off? And there are old-fashioned instructions for that, right? This scared us of the unexpected attack, and everything that comes suddenly is unknown. That's why it was possible now, to scare people with this virus question. Even if it's not a sledgehammer. I don't know if it's a sledgehammer now, I won't go into this virus issue. But one thing is for sure, when news comes and people don't know it. But it doesn't only apply to this, it also applies to everything else, since they don't know it. And here's one of those. that the unknown caused so many dangers. The brain pulls them all out, and some people die from it. So the subconscious is that rough. That's why we invented mental training, our current life simulator, to pre-train these memories into a chair. Because the E and these, aren't they, that if they shut us down, then we could weigh them with this, but we can't weigh them. And then it's back to the fact that for those who have it shut off, you go there with them, you will still be the enemy. Yes, but because it's like those who are afraid of the good, or their memory is that after happiness, tragedy immediately follows. That if you say, come, let's be happy, it's like stepping into a minefield, you understand? For him, so no, don't miss me, do you understand? Because it's a report. But these are like rally systems. But let's say I also studied as an aircraft instrument technician, and the logic circuits in computers, right? It's the same in the brain. And if something burns, then the report is written differently. So it turns on another signal, its interpretation changes. That's the logic, and isn't that the logic of the subconscious mind? That circuits in the brain burn out due to, say, an injury, which is then coded into the DNA, and that's how we carry it on. It is these burned out states that cause us to identify everything with what is not current now, but what happened once. And it will be separated by consequences. Now the consequence can be a life event, but the problem with that is that it can be an accident, it can be death, it can be loss, financial, any kind of adultery. Today there is a more developed method for getting rid of these memories under safe conditions, so to speak. So this would be the message of the whole thing, how to avoid this feeling of being attacked, which is really the basis of the conflict today. Because if a person is afraid of being attacked, then he will either retreat, right? Or he will attack. So that's it.
Yes, or he will attack. So if you already smell trouble, you might as well attack ahead. So what does the dog do?
He sinks into a fog. I have a dog and a deer. I raise both of them. One is a hunting dog, the other is a greyhound, but I got them used to each other anyway. They can handle each other. They have become objective, but the point is that the Transylvanian hound is one of them, and that breed of dog. The Transylvanian hound is one of the best hunting dogs, and it acts as the best signaling dog, and it can already feel my car from afar, and it protects me, listen, and from afar, when it hears my car, it runs around the fence and barks at everything and everyone.
We'll assure you that when it arrives.
Yes, it scares people. It reveals where the danger is. Dogs work by anticipating the environment that they don't see coming out. This is how he does it. Now, Autumn works the other way around. Autumn works in such a way that the smallest A, in fact, does not move at all. He is already scared of it. So, the deer eat in such a way that if you look at a group of deer, in each group, something has its head up. There is no such thing as everyone eating at the same time, because one has to pay attention, so they are escape animals. They can have a heart attack on a scare and die there.
The world is a bit like that, isn't it?
That's exactly how the world is.
It is meant to provoke things that are in the subconscious, and then, right, if you react to it, then the game starts, because you proved that I was right. That's right, and it continues. Also, if there is an understanding and insight, then you can change it as appropriate. And counting to 3 is not a new thing.
It's not a new thing, it's just that people don't get to do it because they turn me off.
Because suddenly it is, because it is much stronger.
This disconnected state is absolute.
So they turn off immediately, right when we are turned off immediately when they scare us.
That's right, at that moment.
Or when we are very afraid.
So there's an absolute yes, isn't it? And the visceral compulsion, the truth that, the Latins program will find out if there's a situation. A lot of people told me that it's good, I'm calm. Moreover, I trained a lady who had an incident. She was humiliated. And I tell him how and how his story will be. Well, I processed it a long time ago. I say, sure, fine, let's try it. I took it, played it for him, implanted it steadily, let him come steadily, you can't even move. And he says that I can easily do it now. You played this recording for him, for which he was shamed. Listen, it's broken. So there it is, and that's a responsibility. It is a responsibility to know that it is indeed processed like the Shaolin. What you don't react to in a situation is processed. Now, these can be stimulated in advance. By the way, the voltage release techniques are not bad either. There are those who throw axes because there is me. There are companies where it has been introduced that computers can be smashed in such rooms. They are important. They are very important. You won't do anything wrong if you release the voltage. So you have to know, you have to learn the logic and operation of consciousness, and the typical example of the dog and the ancestor is very good, because the dog also causes trouble if it starts barking forward, and there is nothing wrong because then he causes the trouble. And the ancestor too, if he starts to run away where he shouldn't be, because it runs into something, so nothing actually happened. One destroys itself, the other, and the other, he sees something in it. So in fact these must be trained in advance. This will be the future, not even the future, the technique of the present. To decipher these in advance, this is how you can avoid them. There is no point in war, but this war actually goes to the brain. Right, when someone is afraid, and you said it very well, this is exactly the grey dog effect, that the dog barks, the other gets scared, and then the war is over. One goes crazy, the other goes crazy because they reinforce each other. The dog starts barking, the deer starts running, but the deer gets scared, the dog starts barking, it gets even more scared, it barks even more, and in the end both will be there. It will ring, and everyone will be there. There are no winners in a war.
Zulika, it could take forever. There are so many things to talk about. What are the possibilities? How can you be found for whom the book was written? Can you tell me something that can be seen and bought?
Yes, this book can be purchased by me. I didn't want to publish it, and I won't publish it publicly because it's a list, so it contains all the realizations which have not changed since then and are even scientifically proven. However, I am writing the Code of Happiness. It is about the logic of consciousness. It will appear soon. And you can also search for me because this method seems to work. With a lot of methodology, you can practically know in advance how the background works, which is what I realized, that consciousness is the whole, and it's enough that if we know what's going on here and how it works, what is its logic, then it will be all consciousness. A person is conscious if he also takes this into account. Then it's conscious. Because if we only calculate that, oh, I'm going to decide something, that I want something or don't want it, that's not yet awareness. If I calculate this, what will turn on? Observe yourself. What has happened in my life so far? I can already deduce from that what is going on here, so I can calculate what will happen again.
How are you, Zolik, after so much work, after all the discoveries you made about yourself? How do you feel? Are you feeling better?
It's an interesting thing. It's very interesting that I have the duality. I don't have the burden, but also the joy. Actually, the situation is that the burden is caused by the fact that it is not a simple and visceral compulsion, so I will not be able to change it. I can give clues, etc., many others besides me, so I'm not the only one. It's so much that I managed to sum it up like this as his knowledge logic, but it's just a method, it's a backbone. But depending on this, there will be a lot of people in the future, more and more helpers who can help each other. But I'm burdened precisely because it can't be solved this way. So, to discuss it here now, we will say it can only start processes. But the visceral reflexes, when one's own inner self forces us to do something, not to do what I'm translating, that's terrible. Terrible, really. But you have to go through them, and from that point of view, it's okay. But that's why I'm fine, and I'm glad that there are already gates, there are directions. So, for example, if someone starts something like this, I don't necessarily have to get involved. Well, if I'm fine, so if someone takes care of himself, then believe that the environment will also change because he's not doing things that he went into and strengthened a long time ago. He didn't put me in it, and then his world will open up. The other is that if someone takes care of himself, I understand that there are envious people, but to be honest, it is also good for the envious because they are the same people as us. There is no such thing as they are the jealous ones, these and those, no. Everyone has envy somewhere. For some it is stronger, for some it is weaker, but obviously the envious person unfortunately feels empowered to attack the other, which is not true. It is only because of the memory. So, on the one hand, they also have to be convinced that there are two. Today, in the state of 2020, it is not easy to be attacked, so you don't have to be so afraid of it, but rather you have to count on the fact that there are such reactions, but it is not the person himself. But it is like here is the person, and then there is a virus, and it has the reaction of envy, so that this can be played out, and he develops as a result. So if someone wants to succeed, consider that the path to success is not just building something, but getting to know myself and thus others, and trying to create a technique for how to carry it through, because if I'm envious and I envy you, then I'd rather drag you down instinctively. because I can't hold back, can't I? Unfortunately, it's one of those things, but you somehow cleverly play me and acknowledge me, and in the meantime keep going, and suddenly you'd reach that level that you have set. Then you already know what to do with you, but you are teaching me more and more that it should be done this way. So this is what I can recommend. Let everyone go through their own things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Thank you and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.
We would also like to thank you, our dear viewers, for your respectful attention. You have seen VNTV, and you can see our former 80s on VNTV's YouTube channel.